So according to the ATA president, Chris Spear, in the last couple of years, you've excelled in revamping the association, scoring multiple legislative victories in the process. And he specifically pointed out the bridge tolls. So Pennsylvania DOT, PennDOT had been pursuing, I think it was like nine different highway bridges for more tolls, especially for truckers. And you spearheaded an effort it involved building an opposition coalition, engaging the public and the media to bring attention to it, and then working closely to mount a legal challenge throughout this. And then the court sided with the PMTA-led coalition that ruled PennDOT failed to follow proper procedure pursuing the bridge tolling initiative. I'm just curious, tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Actually, it was funny. It was right around the time I started at PMTA. I think the second day I was there, I did an interview on TV about that specific issue. So it kind of got baptized by bridge tolling. Baptized by bridge tolling.
I love that.
But yeah, it was a huge issue, one that would have affected all of our members.
Yeah.
PennDOT was planning to toll 9 interstate bridges across the state, in every corner of the state, 4 on Interstate 80. So if you were traveling from one side of the state to the other, you'd actually across 4 tolled bridges.
Yep.
And we did the calculation, and for cars, they were talking about $1 to $2, but for trucks, $10 to $12 per crossing. So we did the calculation. It would have been $5,000 to $6,000 per truck per year, which, some people thought that wasn't a lot. But if you take that times the number of trucks and the number of crossings that a lot of our members and a lot of, companies in Pennsylvania cross those bridges quite a lot, especially the ones located near the bridges, obviously, are going to be impacted the most. It would have had a huge impact on the industry in Pennsylvania. We're talking, over time, billions of dollars of costs layered on top of an already expensive industry here in Pennsylvania. We are already the 3rd most expensive state to drive a truck in.
Right.
So it would have been just devastating. But I think the most galling thing about that proposal was that it was a COVID, project. They didn't do any public notification about it. It was a virtual meeting of the Public-Private Partnership Board at PennDOT, where they announced this proposal and voted on it with, I think there were 4 slides that the board was shown.
Oh my gosh.
So we wouldn't have even known about it except our lobbyist in Harrisburg alerted us, hey, I just heard something. Maybe you should tune into this P3 board hearing, which of course was virtual. So tuned in, and big surprise, there was a bridge tolling vote. So it was just really galling how that happened because, we all try to trust our government, and there are certain processes that you need to go through in order to be responsive to the citizens of the state. And voting on a public-private partnership board, voting on a virtual meeting in the middle of a pandemic to impose tolls on everybody in Pennsylvania, which we believe is a tax, is just not the way things should be done. So we fought it from the very beginning, from that very first P3 board meeting all the way through the end. And like you said, we fought it a couple different ways, educating people about it, educating them about the costs involved and about how, processes weren't followed. They didn't announce it ahead of time. There was no public comment period before it was voted on. There was just no process followed. We fought it legislatively. We started talking to lawmakers and using those relationships that you talked about, calling up friends in Harrisburg and saying, were you aware this was happening? Do your constituents know this is happening? And a lot of our members did that. They called their state senators, they called their state representatives, and were really pushing back because they used those relationships they already had. And then the legal challenge, like you said, there were some municipalities outside of Pittsburgh that filed a lawsuit challenging the process because this was just a faulty process. And we submitted an amicus friend of the court brief on that lawsuit. There was another lawsuit filed in central Pennsylvania too, but the court tossed out, it was two parts, 2 separate cases, but ultimately the case that we filed our amicus brief on tossed the P3 proposal out, stopped the 9-bridge tolling.
Yep.
And then a few months later, the General Assembly passed a law that prohibited it. So it was really, I called it a 3 strikes and you're out, because there were 2 lawsuits with a decision in our favor, and then the law finally passed, which was sponsored by Senator Langerholtz, and actually outlawed what they did through that process.
And so are we hearing any other news that maybe they're trying other efforts for more tolls in other ways?
Well, like I said, that law that passed, Senator Langerholt's bill, would prohibit that from happening in the future. If they try to do a P3 with tolls in the future, there's a lot of requirements that would have to happen. It would have to be approved through the General Assembly. There would have to be a public comment period. It would have to be transparent. It would have to be published so we would all know about it ahead of time.
The way it should be.
Exactly. And then it can only be on optional options and new infrastructure.
Okay.
So if they were building another lane onto an interstate and wanted to charge a toll for that specific lane, they'd be allowed to do that, but not for currently existing free interstate roads. So there's a lot of hoops you would have to jump through to do that in the future. And that's, if I can add that too, that's important because we know New York is dealing with congestion tolling right now. I think by defeating this bridge tolling effort in Pennsylvania last year, we were able to head off because PennDOT had things like congestion tolling and full interstate tolling in mind after they finished the bridge tolling.
Right.
So that's not going to happen now, at least not through a P3 process. It would have to take an act of the General Assembly. So I don't think we'll be looking at things like congestion tolling that anytime soon that New York is dealing with.